welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very informative show coming right up with Dr. Sandy Skotnicki, and she's here today to talk to us about her new book, Beyond Soap. So Dr. Sandy is the founder of Toronto Bay's Dermatology Center and an assistant professor at the Department of Medicine, Division of Dermatology and Occupational and Environmental Health at the University of Toronto. She's a consultant dermatologist at Toronto's St. Michael Hospital and a well-known expert on skin allergies. Dr. Sandy has been quoted in the Flare magazine, Elle Canada, The Globe, and Mail. And she's appeared regularly on TV, ET Canada, CTV, City TV, Global News, CBC Radio, and The National. So let's welcome to the show Dr. Sandy Skotnicki.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have you here. And, man, what a profound book. I was reading it. It's still, it's got so much information. And I think a lot of people don't realize everything that's going on with these different products that we put on our skin.
No, I think that's part of the reason I wrote the book, obviously. As dermatologists, we know that there's been sort of an increasing issue with people reacting to their skincare, and sort of we battle every day. We try to get people to not wash as much, and we know this, but the message hasn't been disseminated to the general public. So that was part of the reason I wrote this book. It's not a beauty book. It's really a skin health book.
Well, and so you said that part of the reason that you were inspired to write this book is because, the general public needs to know. Is there more inspiration that came behind developing this book?
Well, my academic interest is something called contact dermatitis, which is basically anything that comes into contact with the skin. You can become either allergic to it or get irritated by it. And there's a small subgroup of dermatologists who sort of focus on this area. And, we know that patients who use a shampoo or a body wash or wear certain clothing or occupational exposures can become allergic to their environment or get irritated by what they're putting on their skin. But the public doesn't seem to know this. So a lot of patients that come in with a rash, they usually go, is it something from what I'm eating? And I'm like, no, it's your detergent, the fragrance in your detergent, or it's the preservative in your shampoo. And, these types of things happen all the time. We see them in our office. Like, it's almost a mini epidemic of people reacting to their skincare. I'm probably a bit biased because I see this is my interest, but if you ask 10 dermatologists, a lot of people react to what they put on their skin and they don't realize it.
Yeah. Well, and I was shocked. There was in your book, you talk about a study that was done by the Food and Drug Administration just recently, and how it had this, kind of adverse. Yeah, it was shocking. Yeah. We'll put it that way. I'll let you explain it.
Well, I mean, people call in and report a reaction to a certain product or a shampoo, and the FDA finally published that data in 2016, and there's a steep increase. And it was published in JAMA Internal Medicine. And I think the FDA knows there's an issue. It's such a big industry. It's a $400 billion worldwide, $400 billion worldwide industry. And, the reports, like in the book, I think it's on the first page of my book, there's 125% increase in over 3 years. Part of that is there was one particular shampoo, organic shampoo, that a lot of people had a problem with, then called in and complained. But the numbers are small if you look, like you think, I think it was 100 or 1,500 or something. But those are only the people that call in report. So many people have reactions and don't actually realize it's from things that they are touching their skin that are in their personal care products.
Well, and in your book, you share an experience of a patient whose name is Jennifer and what she went through with a rash. I'd love for you to share that for our listeners.
Well, Jennifer is like the typical patient who comes in and she has, rash on her face and her neck. and our upper back. And the first question usually is it something I'm eating? And I don't know, and I think it's your shampoo. We've seen a steep increase in shampoo reactions. And the issue with the shampoos is that people don't realize that the scalp's actually quite resistant to irritation at the onset anyway. And you'll get a rash on your eyelids and neck from ingredients in your shampoo. So, Jennifer was suffering for months, and, she changed her face wash to something hypoallergenic, which is not regulated, so that there's no guarantee for consumers with that label. She changed her makeup. She stopped using stuff, but she didn't think about her shampoo. And I allergy tested her, and she was reacting to a preservative in her shampoo called methyl isothiazolinone, which has become a bit of an epidemic, and it's banned in leave-on products in the European Union, and it's highly restricted in shampoos and body washes in the European Union, and it's not in North America.
Oh, well, and so is that something we should look for every time we're at the grocery store or we're picking up a different type of shampoo?
Well, it's tough because it's in everything. It's in a lot of shampoos. And, the pushback we get from companies are, well, there's only a small percentage of people that are allergic. But that's still millions of people. 1% of your population is still a lot of people. And we see them as dermatologists. And I think it's just that part of the reason for writing the book is people don't realize that what they put on their skin can give them rashes like that. And they think if they go buy something hypoallergenic or for sensitive skin, they're going to be protected. And the problem is as you know, skincare is not that well regulated. Those terms don't. There's no legal ramifications for putting hypoallergenic on a bottle. So patients don't. They go months and months sometimes before they can see a dermatologist in Canada anyway. And they don't realize that it's something that they're actually putting on their skin. That's the main impetus to write this book, so that people understand and really give them how to fix it is part of the title. It's because I started this product elimination diet thing because patients had to wait so long to be tested, or they were in a rural area and they couldn't get in to be tested. And I said, if you follow this list of products that don't have the top allergens and irritants in them, chances are you'll probably improve. And then when we can test you, we'll test you. And it started to really help a lot of people. And people would come in and say, you should write a book. You should tell people about this. And that was part of the reason for doing this.
Well, we're so glad that you wrote this book. It is filled with a lot of information.
That's great.
I have the whole thing. I have so many dog ears in this. It's crazy. Because even from things
great.
like you have I love these little blue boxes in the book that talk about how, eczema is close, similar to asthma. And people look at that and go, wow, how is that even a thing?
Right. Well, it's interesting that the skin, again, people have a disconnect with the skin somehow. But if I tell patients, I use this analogy a lot. So I say if somebody has asthma and they go into a smoky room, they get worse, right? And the patients look at me like I've got two heads. Well, of course, everybody knows that. And I said, well, it's no different with your skin. So that's why I labeled or titled the chapter "Smoke for Your Skin," because everything that we put on our skin, especially if you're eczema prone, it's like potential smoke. It's not that you're allergic to the fragrance in your body wash or you're allergic to the botanical or the lavender. It's just that it could irritate you and it could make things worse. And when it's that analogy, that sort of comparison that I find is very useful, because they don't look at their skin the same, but asthma seems to be something that people understand.
Well, and this kind of brings me to my next question, because you talk about sensitive skin in your book and how there's an increase in that. And I'd love for you to expand on that for us.
Well, that was the other reason sort of to write this book, because we're bombarded as dermatologists with people coming in saying, I have sensitive skin, I have reactive skin, I can't use anything. And, I would allergy test, and I still do, but over the years I've allergy tested a lot of these people, and they're not allergic to anything. It's because the multiple product interaction, I call it cumulative irritation, that's what I think causes a lot of sensitive skin. Sensitive skin studies, so there's lots of published peer-reviewed studies on the incidence of sensitive skin. And one of the leaders is Dr. Howard Maybach out of California. And these are survey studies, so that the patients will, they're recognizing themselves or diagnosing themselves as having sensitive skin because there's no sort of set criteria. And the incidence is worldwide in industrialized countries is 40%. Now, you think that's a big chunk of the population. And I think in America, I don't have my book in front of me, but it's 61%. Italy, 91% of people self-identify that were surveyed as having sensitive skin. So you kind of have to wonder, that's not possible genetically. So it's obviously environmental, right? And then the knee-jerk response by the public is, I'm going to go more natural. And that's what I really hope I get the message across in the book. It's not about natural or synthetic. Both can cause problems. It's about sheer quantity and number of ingredients. Like if you use your face wash, your moisturizer, your makeup, your eye cream, that's like maybe 100 chemicals, and your skin just is like, I've had enough, and they react, or it reacts. So I think that was a point I wanted to make in the book.
Well, I'm glad you did. I mean, it's interesting because I've tried. This was many moons ago. I tried a very high-end natural product and used their mascara and basically had a very severe reaction to it.
Right.
I started to swell shut. I mean, it was not good. So, I mean, yeah. I was grateful to see that chapter because a lot of times people, as you say, they think that natural is just going to be way better.
Yeah, and I was a little worried about a pushback. I mean, I tried to be very, there's no good or bad cream. It's ingredients. Mm-hmm. Some ingredients, both synthetic and natural, are good, and some are bad for particular individuals. Because some people can use whatever the heck they want and not have a problem. But when they do have a problem, what do you do? When I did a little bit of a media tour in New York, and I met some beauty and health editors, and they said the most common question we get from readers is, what do we do when we have a reaction? And we don't have an answer for them. They go get another product, or they stop something and they get hypoallergenic, and they still don't get better. And so that's the other reason for sort of writing this book. It's a pathway to, what do you do? How do you fix it when you have a problem? Because a lot of times it's not one product, it's the culmination or accumulation of everything together. And that's kind of a hard concept for people to understand. So I tried to break it down in the diet part, the product elimination diet part.
Well, and I can see, like, when you talk about products to stop using, you kind of go into, I mean, you look at the list, it's like, well, that's a lot, because you look at your hair care, if you're using like shampoo and conditioner and oils or mousse or anything like that, and then your facial products and your body products like soaps and, and the list goes on. And I use all these things in the morning for the most part. And so you look at it and you're like, wow, that's a lot,
Mm-hmm. Well, whenever I tell patients you've got to do this diet thing to get better, especially women, they go, oh my gosh, I have to stop everything. But it's not forever. And I'm not saying you can't use other things that you used to use, but it's kind of like a food elimination diet. You've got to stop everything. You've got to go 100% all in, head to toe, and then clear up and then reintroduce what you miss one at a time, one per week. And it really does work, especially for people that have been suffering for a long time. And sometimes the light bulb will go off. Patients will come back and they'll go, oh, I think I get it now. I get it. I reintroduced X and I had a reaction. But everything else I kept the same. And so I went back again and tried again. And part of it is labeling. Labels of hypoallergenic and sensitive skin aren't reliable. but that's not the whole picture. The whole picture is really the multitude of products that we use. I talk about they have to play nice together, like they all have to play together, and there's just the sheer number of things that we use, and all the ingredients in skincare that aren't really necessary. Like I tell patients who've had reactive or sensitive skin, if you see a label with 50 ingredients or 30, steer away. I mean, bonus points if the product has 10 ingredients or less, right? And this is kind of the new wave of skincare, which I'm happy to see, and I think it's born on a necessity. Less is more. Like there's a couple companies that are putting 5 ingredients in their product, or that if you ask a chemist, there's not a lot that you need. You need like a water, you need whatever the active is, you need a preservative, you need something to make them mix. 5 or 6 ingredients. The chapter on marketing, sort of the horizontal segmentation aspect of the more flavors you have, or the more one's for oily, one's for this, one's for straight hair, one's for curly, you sell more product. It's a marketing principle. If you separate out little pieces of pie that everybody is going to like, you'll end up selling more product. And I thought that was an interesting concept that started in food, but really was parlayed into the beauty industry.
Well, and it's so interesting. You have many sections in here. I'm just like, oh, what can we talk about next?
I'm so glad that you liked it. That it's a headed nerve for sure. People are hungry for this information, and I kind of don't know why nobody's written about it before. I mean, a lot of dermatologists write beauty books. This is really a skin health book, as I've said, and it's. I think the timing was right, because there's such the beauty industry is just so big and so many products.
Oh, without a doubt. And it's interesting, there's a portion in your book you talk about, it's like how, especially women more so, I think, and you mentioned this too, but we're, using all these cleansers, we're peeling our skin, we're doing all these things to get, beautiful, radiant skin, and there's like an easier way.
Well, that's the other thing we haven't actually chatted about. Most interviews, people right away go, so we're not supposed to wash, or we're not supposed to use soap. That's not the premise of the book. It's a catchy title to get people to pick it up. But what I on your point there is, what I really wanted to make easy for readers is to understand what you're actually doing to your skin when you use a detergent or soap and water. And I don't think people know, because they equate it with health. And it is healthy to be clean, but we've mixed up that whole concept of hygiene versus cleanliness. And, if you understand that your skin's a brick wall, the cells are the bricks, and the mortar is sort of your fat or lipid in your skin. And soap and water remove the mortar. So if you actually think about it like just a picture in your mind, so you've got your skin's a brick wall, and when you wash and use soap and detergent, you're actually crumbling that wall. The one aspect, I don't know if you got to the end of the book, was about pollution, and I quote an American dermatologist, I can't remember his name right now. People they think, oh, I went outside and I have pollution, so I'm going to scrub my skin and get rid of it. You can't do that. And actually, by scrubbing it and trying to remove it, you're actually making it worse, because you're damaging the protective barrier that's there to try to keep that, away from your skin. And I don't think the public knows that.
Well, it sounds like by scrubbing your skin, rigorously, that you would also open yourself up to the contaminants that are pollutants. Exactly.
That's the whole point. Yeah. That's the whole point. But that's the whole point. And again, the public doesn't know that. I was talking to a group of people the other day, and I said, we as doctors, especially dermatologists, there's not that many of us. We get together at meetings, we present things, and especially with allergy, and we discover new allergens, and we say, okay, this is a problem, and we pat ourselves on the back. But the message doesn't get out to the public. And I think, I'm an academic, and I publish, and someone said, well, why'd you do a popular science book? I mean, it's not rigorous science. I said, because I want to help people. I mean, I've been a dermatologist 20 years, and I keep seeing the same thing in my office over and over and over again, and I don't know how else to help people, right? When I do help people, they say, wow, you should write a book and tell people this. That was part of the reason, because patients told me I should. And I think because the public doesn't know, they don't realize. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. I mean, a lot of this stuff I didn't know. I was like, this is interesting. I mean, you talk about tossing traditional soap in the trash, as one of the little sub chapters. And a lot of times people think, oh, well, I've, got this one in the market that talks about moisturizing my skin and doing all this stuff that, I'll be covered, not realizing that there's some issues there.
I probably have some colleagues that would say, well, if you put moisturizer into the bar, or you put moisturizer into the body wash, it can help compensate for what the detergent is removing. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree. And that's why we have moisturizing body washes and oil cleansers, and because, we know that soap and detergents are drying and remove our, that sort of mortar from the brick wall. But what happens when you do add in moisturizers and oils and things like that, it's more ingredients, it's more stuff, and it's more chance for people to have a reaction. If it was just, if they would just add the one thing, like an oil or something like that, but they add all kinds of fragrances and stuff that is just not necessary. And where I really have a problem is with children. I mean, there's no need for body washes and things to have, fragrance and lavender and all kinds of things. Just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, the article was published that lavender and tree tea oil have endocrine disruption ability, and young boys that were using these products had a bit of breast development. And there's that disconnect that just because it's natural, it's better. I just don't. It's really about less is more. Your kids don't need to smell like mango or strawberry or lavender. You want to clean them and keep them healthy, but they don't need any of that stuff. And it bothers me when I see baby products that are fragranced.
Oh, I bet, because there can be so many problems that develop from that.
Well, and I think in the children's chapter, if we can touch on that, this sort of increase in eczema. So eczema rates have gone up, and so is asthma and hay fever and allergies dramatically in the last 50 years. Like if you look at a graph, like it's just a spike. And of course, everybody asks why, and talk about the hygiene hypothesis about being too clean, which is a lot about the gut or the digestive tract, but the skin is becoming a factor now in this story. So first of all, if you look at the incidence of eczema, 1949, 5% children and very few adults, and nowadays it's up close to 30%. And you can't explain that through genetics. So one of the theories is it's how we take care of our skin. And again, if you think about what's going on with genetic eczema, is that brick wall I talked about. People with genetic eczema, they have a defect where their brick wall isn't healthy, right? And that's what sort of, in the rudimentary sense, that's what the eczema, because they don't have a healthy brick wall or barrier. They lose water, they get dry, they get itchy. The same scenario is caused by washing and soap. You're basically getting a similar disruption to the brick wall. And, if we overwash and bathe our children in their young years of life, especially if you have a genetic predisposition within the family, there's some dermatologists who strongly believe that has actually caused an increase worldwide in eczema.
Well, it's so interesting how all these things are related, and it's been knowledge that is either been verified recently or things that dermatologists have known for a while, but the general public is so out of touch with it.
No, if you had 10 dermatologists right now and asked them, do people clean too much, wash too much, and they all say yes. I mean, because the public equates it with health, and pre-antibiotic era, and before everybody had showers and indoor plumbing, and yes, being clean was important because you could die. And nowadays, it's that leftover kind of desire or thought that is going to keep you healthy. And it's also partly marketing and the push. The really interesting thing when I started to dive into the history of soap is that, soap was the first beauty product. And it was used to, Florence Nightingale saved, hundreds, thousands of lives just by washing men with soap and water during the war. And so this connection of saving lives and health, that's how it started, and it's good. But then it got linked into beauty. That one ad I talked about. And actually, if you go back and look at some of the ads, they're hilarious from like the 1940s and 50s. If you want to be beautiful and be successful in life, all you need to do is wash with soap, And so as soon as it was hooked to beauty or being accepted in society, that's when the sales really took off, and it sort of launched the beauty industry.
That is just absolutely crazy that happened that way. And for consumers, it can be confusing because you go in, you're looking for, whatever type of product you're looking for, and there's like hundreds of them. So you're trying to decide which one's like the best one. So I think your book really your book Beyond Soap really helps people to decide, am I able to look at the products and look at the ingredients and then determine what's best for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some patients and friends will say, well, I don't have any issues, Sandy. Like, I can use whatever I want. I go, that's fine, but if you just, maybe for your kids or if you just want simple things, or, men are often, they don't just want simple things and they go and get something men is funny. I have a good story. And this made me really happy. It was the week before the launch, actually. A patient came in, middle-aged man, referred to me from about an hour away, had been waiting for months to have allergy testing. And he said, I Googled you before my appointment, and I saw that you wrote a book, and I went in and I have a little section on the product elimination diet, and I decided to just follow it because I was desperate, right? He was facial rash, body rash. And he said, I cleared up. And I came because I still want to be allergy tested, but I also want your book. And it was very gratifying because if I can help people that can't get to a dermatologist or have to wait, or maybe in your country can't afford to see a dermatologist, for us it's a shortage. We only have less than 600 dermatologists in Canada.
Oh, wow.
And the allergy testing is, there's not that many people that do it, patch testing. So it's really a guide to help people that are having issues. And for people that aren't, it's just, if you want to really understand, I'm not a blogger, I'm not a beauty expert. I am a dermatologist with 20 years of experience in what ingredients actually cause problems. And so it's giving you that information, giving you that, empowering you. I will keep it updated on a website because chemicals change. Chemicals come and go in skincare. Like we had PABA sunscreen, and then that caused a lot of allergies, so they stopped that. So there's skincare ingredients do change. What we really need in both countries, mine and yours, is a bit more regulation like they have in Europe. And I think, again, it's timely. We started off talking about the FDA numbers of adverse reactions in the published study in last year. But the commissioner for the FDA, I think it was May 8th, spoke with Bloomberg News that yes, we need more oversight in cosmetics and personal care. And I was astonished. Actually, I didn't know the numbers. I think it's 25 staff members only look after cosmetics and personal care products, and it's a huge industry. Yeah. So they're under funded there. They need more help. And I think two of your senators, Collins and Feinstein, have produced a new Cosmetics and Personal Safety Act. I think they introduced it to the floor in 2015, but it hasn't passed. It would give the FDA more jurisdiction over cosmetics. But I don't know what's going on there. But it's hard to push against this $400 billion industry.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Dr. Sandy Skotnicki about her new book, Beyond Soap. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We've been talking with special guest Dr. Sandy Skotnicki today about her new book, Beyond Soap. Before we went to break, we were talking about regulations in regards to the products that we use. What do you think needs to be done to ensure that the ingredients are listed on the products?
Well, I think the gold standard is Europe, and it's interesting when you talk to in my book. I went to Procter and Gamble and visited the headquarters in Cincinnati, and they're like, yeah, we follow the European Union guidelines for this ingredient and that ingredient. I mean, they know so the European Union is very strict on many ingredients. Another thing that consumers don't realize is when you see fragrance on a label, I don't know if you knew this when she read it in the book, but that is that's not one thing. Like the fragrance is another 20 chemicals or 10, or depending on whatever the scent is for that. Like if we take Pantene shampoo, right? When you see fragrance or perfume on the bottle, you actually don't know what's in there. Now in Europe,
because all it says is fragrance. Yeah,
that's right. Because it's trade secret, it's their smell. Like I understand the concept, but consumers need to know if in that fragrance are ingredients that are potentially allergenic. And in Europe, if there's 26 fragrance molecules are quite problematic. And so they said to manufacturers, if you're going to use these in your fragrances, you have to put them on the label. Because consumers need to know and the doctors need to know. And they've actually expanded it to another, I think, 130. I don't know when it actually comes into effect. But, and a lot of manufacturers are like, we can't put all those names on bottles. And so my response is, don't use them. Use something else. Use something that isn't allergenic. There are companies that are very skin-focused, like I mentioned some of them in the book, Bioderma, La Roche-Posay. They have some fragrances, but they use fragrances that aren't allergenic. And then there's the extension of that where companies will put in an organic fragrance like lavender or something. And what consumers also don't realize is like a lavender essential oil is not one thing. It's like 50 chemicals. And because what you're doing with an essential oil is you're basically taking the essence of a plant. So you're like sucking the life out of it. So there's not one chemical. And it's kind of a hard concept to wrap your head around. But within that essential oil, there are many chemicals, many of which can be irritating and allergenic. So, like I think I talked about.
Yeah,
it does make sense once you read it and you understand it. Like a very common natural fragrance that is used in personal care products is ylang ylang. It actually makes up the base of Aveda, that sort of scent that you recognize. And within ylang ylang essential oil are 3 fragrance allergens that are regulated by the European Union. And when you point that out to people, are like, so it can still be a problem. It doesn't matter that it comes from a plant. I always say poison ivy is a plant. It can give you a rash. So, and there's a disconnect again with the public. They think if they get a rash or they have sensitive skin or they have a problem, they're going to go more natural. And there are some really good natural, products out there, but many of them are going to cause people problems because they're not really the type of skincare you want to go to if you're having a red, irritated rash, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I think that all makes sense. A lot of times, it's just like how you're saying. I mean, we're using all these products. We don't realize like how essential oils and fragrances, they have components of all their own. It's completely separate.
It's not. It's not one thing. It's not one thing. And I think that's another really key message in the book. I try to. I talk quite a bit about fragrance in chapter 5 to explain it. And, this is synthetic fragrance too. I when I was researching, it was really fascinating. I didn't realize that chemists can actually make any fragrance, they copy it, right? So it's like Lily of the Valley, they just collect the sort of volatile molecules over the plant and they can copy it. But it's still the same thing. So whether it's natural or synthetic, it can still cause a problem.
Well, and this kind of leads me to my next question. I would love for you to share with us a little bit in regards to when we talk about anti-aging products, because there's so many things out there that are like, use this product and look 20 years younger in the morning or what have you in a week or whatever the deal is, And so what are your thoughts on those types of products?
Well, a lot of them aren't, rigorously studied. I try to, again, as dermatologists, we always, because we're physicians, we come back to the science. Where's the science? Like, and good science, like studies that have, shown effect, not some company-sponsored study where you looked at 10 people. It has to be a rigorous study. So in essence, if you look at it from that point of view, and I talk about that in Chapter 9, I think, sunscreen is the best thing you can do to decrease your aging, right? And actually decreases, I talk about, I like this analogy, slowing the clock. Like you can't reverse. The only way to reverse aging is through surgery or injectables like Botox and fillers and stuff. Creams and lotions are going to just slow, maybe soften. So sunscreen, number one, hands down the best thing you can do to age less. Don't smoke. And pollution, we now know, increases aging of the skin. And then product. And really the only product that's ever been rigorously shown to slow or decrease or maybe reverse a little bit aging is retinol. Everything else is soft science. And I kind of categorize it as into groups. I mean, antioxidants can be helpful. Some people can't tolerate retinol, so I would say use an antioxidant. And again, the one that's been most rigorously studied is stable vitamin C in at least a 5 to 10% concentration. But then again, some people can't tolerate that. They don't like the smell or it stings. So then you have other options. So there's other options because you may not tolerate the two that actually have some good science, which is retinol, and vitamin C. So then you go down to peptides, which again have some decent science. It's not great. And then the newer things like stem cells and other kinds of peptides. The science there is softer. So I try to break it down for patients. And I always people always come back and say, well, what do you do? I use sunscreen and I use retinol. And I use maybe a bit of vitamin C. I'm lazy in the morning, and that's all I do.
Well, that's cool. And it's interesting because, there's and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've used retinol in the past, and I was told you can't be in the sun at all with it. And so I stopped using it because I was like, well, I'm in the sun all the time,
Yeah. That is, there's so much fear-mongering with things as well. I mean, yes, you are more sun-sensitive if you use retin-A. But the way I look at that is you should be wearing sunscreen anyway. So if you're wearing sunscreen and you're protecting yourself, and you're not burning, like if you're wearing your sunscreen like you normally did, and you're burning like crazy, and because you've been using retin-A, then maybe you've got an issue. But if you're using your retin-A and retinol at night, and you're wearing your sunscreen in the morning, and you're not burning, and you're the same as you always are, there's no problem. That's kind of like that sort of urban myth that your skin's dehydrated. The top part of your skin is dead. I mean, of course it's dehydrated. Like, so there's this sort of, yeah.
Like, what do you expect, water, right?
Yeah, right. Or drinking water will make your skin healthier. That's another myth. I mean, drinking water is important for health, and it keeps all your systems working well. But there's no direct line from drinking water. There's no pipe going to your skin. So that's another. There's lots of these urban myths about skin. Skin is so talked about, so written about, and there's so many misconceptions.
Well, and I'm so glad that you're sharing those with us, because it can get so confusing. I mean, unless you have a fabulous doctor like you that people are able to see and get some clarity on, it can be just really confusing on, like, well, what products do I use? I'm having reactions to some of these things, and maybe I'm getting burned. There's all these, it's so personal, it's so different for every single person. You must be like like a Sherlock Holmes, just trying to figure out what's wrong with each patient that comes to see you.
Well, that's part of the fun of contact dermatitis. We do call ourselves sort of the detectives of dermatology. I do a lot of occupational skin disease as well, and people are reacting to their workplaces. But, part of that, again, if we come back full circle, part of the reason for writing this book is I mean, the amount of people coming in with reactions, in particular to shampoo. Shampoo seems to be a real big problem lately. It's just like skyrocketed over the last few years, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for us as physicians because we see these people that are suffering and they think it's their food or gluten, and they've gone natural, and I mean, like, natural is still fragrances. This is an interesting point. Some patients who have eczema or rosacea, let's say, and they come in and they're flaring or whatever. And so what are you using? Well, I don't use fragrance products because I know it makes me worse. I said, okay. So well, I'm using natural stuff. I say, where do you think the vast majority of fragrances come from? Rose, love. I mean, and again, it's a disconnect. Like they know that fragrance makes them worse. Well, I can't use I've had eczema my whole life. If I use fragrance detergent, my skin goes crazy. So then why are you using, this body moisturizer with lavender or tree oil or whatever it is? And then again, the sort of proverbial light bulb goes off and go, oh yeah, I never really thought about it that way. And again, it's also about less is more. So, because I'll get pushback on people. I don't care, Dr. Skotnicki. I'm not using synthetics. I'm not going to use something with paraben or silicone. And I'll just say, listen, just do the diet for 2-3 weeks, reset your skin, and then go back to what it is you really like, or more natural stuff, but do it in an organized fashion. Because there's so many things and so many products. There's no other. I haven't found any way in my practice otherwise to help people. It's like a reset button, and I've tried to add into the list of my sort of prescribed product elimination diet list some natural choices for people, like virgin coconut oil, sunflower seed oil, a couple moisturizers that are more natural based, a shampoo that is, because I'm not going to, if somebody is just going to say, no, I won't do this, I can't help them. So I've got to give them some options. And there are some really good natural options out there. Where we have a problem as dermatologists, especially contact dermatologists, is when a company just throws in 20 plant-based things just to maybe differentiate it from the market, and it can cause problems for patients. And the stuff that's in there has very little science to what is it actually doing besides sounding nice and giving a nice smell.
Yeah. And it's just, so they can call themselves, organic or natural or whatever the case is. And, and you touched on moisturizers a little bit. I'd love for you to expand on that for us, because I love how in each of the chapters you have, when you discuss like soap or shampoo, you give examples of what people can use, so that they're at least not going, okay, well, now I've got to go into this sea of stuff and try to figure out what, read 50 labels and try to figure out what my body can tolerate. You give them options. But how important is using a moisturizer?
Well, I think I say in one of the chapters that, and hope I don't, I'm a little worried about backlash a little bit, but I mean, you don't need a moisturizer. I mean, for the vast majority of people, if you don't overwash, because we're kind of caught in a destructive cycle in Western culture, right? Because we shower every day and clean every day, and we're sort of mindless, go in the shower and just clean. You'd get dry because you're removing that protective barrier. So we kind of have to replace it. My first hope is that people just maybe soap and shower a little less so that you don't need the moisturizer. But if you don't have diseased skin, disease is maybe a bit of a heavy word, but if you don't have eczema or psoriasis, or you don't live in a cold climate, and as you get older you get a bit dry, if you don't have any of those issues, it's arguable that you don't need a moisturizer. So I'm talking body right now. As far as face goes, it's such an idiosyncratic thing. I mean, everybody's different, right? Are you acne prone? What climate do you live in? So and price point. and availability. The most commonly used moisturizer in the world is coconut oil, because there's a lot of places that don't have a Walgreens down the street. And it's an excellent moisturizer. Not for the face, because it can give acne. But virgin coconut oil is amazing. It has all kinds of great properties that have been scientifically studied. It's antibacterial. It helps repair the barrier. There's all kinds of things. But I don't want to smell like a coconut. So that's why I give other options. Yeah.
I get that.
I try to break down moisturizers too. It's like there's different qualities that make a good moisturizer. One of them is repairing that brick wall again. So you want some ingredients in there that will do that, like ceramides or some lipids or something. And then you want something that's occlusive, that sort of seals the wall, like that would be glycerin and things like that. So there's a different ingredients that make a good moisturizer, which I try to talk about in that one section and make it really simple for people. But that's a lot of information, and people are just like, well, just give me a suggestion. So that's why I break it down. And everything on that list has no fragrance in it, and no botanical or organic things other than the coconut oil and the sunflower seed oil. And it's just a starting point. It's like a reset button. And then you can then, once you're better or once you're having no issues, you can introduce one thing per week. But, if you're not having any issues and you just want simple things that are have less of a chance to ever cause a problem, because I don't want people to think that this book is only for people with problem skin. It's really for anybody who's interested in having healthier skin.
Well, and I think that's all kind of what we're striving for. That's why people use so many different products, because they're trying to solve, some kind of problem that's going on themselves. Like, oh, my face is really dry, so I got to get a moisturizer. And now I'm breaking out, so now I probably need, all these. They've got the toners and these different products. They should probably get face peels and on and on and on.
But that's the thing. It's exactly exactly what you're saying is when people have a problem, they go get more product. Right? They go get more things because they want to fix it. And what I'm saying is you got to stop everything. And but it's sort of contra to this sort of notion that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. You just keep getting more product, and they don't get any better. And that's part of why we see them in the dermatology office.
Well, and so for our listeners that want to go ahead and make some changes today, besides buying your book, Beyond Soap, what other tips do you have that they can start just kind of a common sense beauty routine like now?
Right. Well, when you are, so just the last part of the last page of my book, I basically say, so where do you go from here? Basically, always sanitize your hands, because that is what you need to do to prevent infectious spread. And hand sanitizer is proven to be less irritating and more effective than soap and water, which again is a common misconception. When you do wash yourself, if you're not dirty, if all you did all day was sit and go to work and come home, do you need to go in the shower and scrub your arms and back and legs with a detergent? The answer is no. Doesn't mean you can't rinse. Doesn't mean you can't have a shower, because people like to wake up or whatever. But you just think about, why am I doing this if I'm not dirty, if I haven't done anything, if I'm not, and if you have some odor, you wash under your arms with your soap, you wash your groin, maybe your feet. And your hair, you don't need to, like, guys will, with short hair, will sometimes wash their hair twice a day with shampoo. And I'm like, why? What are you doing that for? It's not necessary. Once or twice a week. Women, maybe I try to use more dry shampoo, so I shampoo less. And, you won't need a moisturizer if you do these little changes. And then sunscreen is really arguably the only anti-aging thing that really, really works. And after that, it's retinol and vitamin C. And day-to-day things that you can do outside of your skincare are smoking ages us, pollution. We now know that sleep, if you don't sleep well, that can age you. And exercise can also help decrease skin aging. So all of those things, it's pretty basic, and it'll save you tons of time. Do you know, I read a study that the average person spends 60 hours in the shower, and which would, over a lifetime of 60 years, is 3 years of your life. So think about all the extra time you'd have to do other things if you weren't in the shower scrubbing away. Never mind all the money you'd save on product. Yeah.
Yeah. That just broke it down.
Yeah.
When you look at that. But I mean, your body does need time to recoup after each shower that you have. So it makes sense that it's not really necessarily something to do on a daily basis.
No, and if we look at just I think in chapter 2 when I talk about the history of cleaning, I mean, Homo sapiens as a species, I guess, has been around 200,000 years, and for only the last 100 have we been washing and scrubbing. So our skin was kind of left alone, and we never even talked about the microbiome. I mean, that's a whole other, thing that I think that washing has definitely affected, and we don't really know the science there yet. That's just being unraveled. But high pH soaps affect the acid. Our skin is acidic, and if you have a traditional old-fashioned soap bar that's high pH, like 9 or 10, you're altering the pH of the skin, which is affecting that bacteria and all the other organisms that live on us. And has that somehow caused disease? What has all this washing done in the last 100 years? Have we somehow changed it or altered it? I don't think we don't know the answer, but when I interviewed different microbiologists for the book, they said, well, of course, yes, but how are we going to study that? I think it's interesting. I mentioned a few studies where some microbiologists did go and look at indigenous populations in, the Amazon, and their skin is so different. Everything's different about them. Their gut's different. Their brain's different. And has removal of this microbiome, altering this microbiome through washing and high pH soaps and clean water and antibiotics, has it changed it? I think the answer is yes, but we don't understand how or what to do about it. One thing you can do is wash less and use less soap, especially in children, because their immune system is developing, and you need the microbiome on the skin to train it. And if you're altering that with overwashing, it can. I'm almost certain that it's associated with increased incidence of eczema and asthma and allergies. The American Academy of Dermatology came out in 2016 and said, you don't need to bathe your children every day. And that was a big, bold step. They didn't give an exact amount because everyone's different. Depends on where you live. If you're in a hot, sweaty environment, hot climate. But throwing your kid in a bathtub every night just because you think that's what you're supposed to do is actually not good for your kid's skin.
And then we can see why there's been an increase of people having allergic issues because of all these things they're having. It has snowballs.
Right, and allergy in children, like contact allergy. There's a wonderful dermatologist who actually reviewed my book, and she's on the back cover, Dr. Sharon Jacobs. She's the current president of the American Contact Dermatitis Society, and her interest is pediatric or kid children's allergy, and she shows like there's a huge increase in the last 20 years, and it's because we put all this stuff on our kids' skin, which we don't need to.
Yeah, it really is it's kind of like overdoing it, which makes sense. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, it all makes sense.
Well, and consumers know, and consumers want and want to change and know, but the problem is they go to the organic, right, or the natural. And I think just like anything, there are some good products out there, but a lot of them are just as problematic. And so, yeah, well, I had a patient who was referred to me by another dermatologist. She'd been having burning red face for months. And so I said, well, what do you know, so I put her on this diet thing, and she came back 3 weeks later, and she said, I figured out what it was. She said, it's my frankincense oil. I put a little bit of my frankincense oil into my moisturizer every day, and I did what you said. I eliminated everything. I changed my shampoo, my face, the whole thing, got better, and then I started to reintroduce because she likes more natural things. And she said, the first, and I was fine, and I put this on, and my face starts burning. And I would have never figured it out had I not stopped everything and sort of reintroduced one at a time. Like, it's really not rocket science. It's pretty simple to do. But it's this desire to just want to get another product to fix it. And it's the, it's the industry saying, get this is hypoallergenic, or get this is natural, this will be good for you. And I'm hoping that this book can help people with that are having issues.
Well, I'm sure your book, Beyond Soap, it's a great reference. I'm actually using it and love it, and highly suggest everyone get their own copy. Dr. Sandy, where can people connect with you and be part of your community?
I started a website, and I'm starting to have a blog, and my book information is on there. It's basically my name, www.drsandyscotnicki.com. If you also, I'm on Twitter, and if you just put in Beyond Soap Book, you'll find me. There are a lot of good products out there, and there's a lot of people who really care about skincare, and they don't have the knowledge or the science. And if there's something that somebody really loves, they can send it to me. I'll review the ingredient list. I'll tell you what the problems are. In as timely fashion as I can. But and then if I had a patient come in a couple months ago, and I've added it to my list on the website. It's not in the book because it was already submitted for printing. But there's a small company called Clear, Cleure, which was started by a dentist out of California, and because she had problems, and it's completely fragrance-free and has no organic in it. And so these little companies do exist, and because people want them, and they're craving for this kind of thing. And so if somebody knows of something, send it to me. I'll review it and add it to my list.
Well, that's fabulous. Well, I'm part of your community. I'll be checking that all out and seeing all the great things that come up. Dr. Sandy, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you. You've been a great interviewer. It's a thrill when somebody reads the book and actually gets it and enjoys it, and I really, it makes me happy, and it's made my day, so I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sandy. It's been such a joy to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your book, Beyond Soap, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all major retailers. And my goodness, what a wealth of information that book is. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.